via our social media and live platforms. The National Consultations 2026 budget, and we are now in St. David. The caravan has been moving throughout the nation and will continue to do so over the next week. This stop this evening, of course, is Virgin Parish, St. David. Thank you so much for joining us. And as we do at all things, we will begin with prayer. So I invite you all to stand. And at this juncture, we'll have Pastor Jude Hector, who's going to open us in prayer.
Good evening, everyone. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we are thankful for today. Lord, we are truly blessed as a nation, Lord. We thank you that we can gather as your people, Father God, to discuss the budget. Lord, we thank you that, God, the word says, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. So, Lord, we ask as we discuss, as we deliberate, Lord, that you will want to guide our proceedings, Lord. You are very, very interested in this exercise, Lord, because it's really how are the resources of this nation going to be used, Father God, for the development of our people and our nation. So we ask, oh God, for wisdom. We ask for guidance. We ask, oh God, for understanding. Lord, and that the outcome of this will be for the development of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. Lord, let just good peace and camaraderie, and Lord, we're just going to have a time of understanding and not leave, really enlightened and empowered to take it to the next step. So we ask all of this by your mercies and grace. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. Please remain standing. We've paid homage to God. Now we pay homage to country. So let's stand for the national anthem. Thank you very much. You may be seated. So once again, I just want to say thank you for being here this evening. We have two rich presentations for you from units within the Ministry of Finance. As mentioned, this is the National Budget Consultations, where we come to you, our residents, our citizens, so that the government and the citizenry can work hand in hand to build out the 2026 budget. To give you an idea of the process that we are in right now and where we'll be going from here, I'd like to invite a member of the budget unit, Ms. Akiba Andrews. She's going to help you understand the budget. Let's put our hands together for Ms. Andrews.
A pleasant good afternoon to all. My name is Akiba Andrews. I am a budget officer attached to the budget unit, Ministry of Finance. Today I'm going to provide you with an overview of the budget process. All right, so it's an honor to stand before you today in the presence of so many people, not just in St. David's, but a parish that I consider home. So I know during these Spice Mass celebrations, St. David showcased vibrant culture and talent. Notably, I believe it's Miss Mark. She would have placed second in the National Carnival pageant. And also Alex Coffey, which is Muddy, he would have taken the title for Power Soca Monarch. And this shows that we have great products of St. David's. So we're here today to find out how can we continue to make St. David's great. What do the people of St. David's want to see the government to do within their parish to continue that type of development within our people? So as we approach the formulation of the upcoming national budget, it is imperative that your voices, and that is of the different communities of St. David's, can continue to discuss and let us know how we can help in the social and economic development of your parish. So we may ask ourselves, what is a budget? We want to know how your input is vital within the budget process. So let us try to understand the concept of the budget. So the budget is not just a page of numbers, but rather a reflection of the priorities of the government and as a people. It is how we decide where to allocate our resources to meet the needs of Grenada. So at home, let me see how many, by the show of hands, usually create a budget for their monthly expenses. Let's just show by a raise of hands. Okay, great. So too does the government. We have to do budgeting for things like schools, hospitals, roads, infrastructure, constraints, and even opportunities for our people. So I'll proceed to defining what the budget is. The budget is a statement of allocation of financial resources which the government use in providing goods and services to help improve the social and economic well-being of the people for a fiscal year which we consider 12 months. Now that we know that it is an overall statement of allocation of resources, we should also know that it is a process that we have to go through to get to that budget. Therefore, it is a reconciliation process where ministers, members of legislature, public servants, civil society, organizations, and other key stakeholders engage in debate on various issues and agree on those allocation of resources. Now, when we speak of the budgets, we speak of how the government projects revenue and expenditure for the financial year. When we speak of revenue, we speak of how the government will earn or where will it get the money from to spend on its expenses. And we usually get money from things like taxes, duties, grants, loans, VATs, and even licenses. When we speak of expenditure, we speak of where the government will spend the money on, basically what it will spend the money on. Now we have two different types of expenditure. We have our recurrent, which is a day-to-day running costs like salaries, utilities, pensions, and we also have the capital expenditure, which is long-term investments like roads, hospitals, and schools. Now, in the budget, the government must show source of funds for all expenditure items, and source of funds are things like investments, savings, grants, loans, and recurrent revenue. Now, when our revenue are greater than our expenses, we have what is called a surplus. That is extra money for the government to spend. When our revenue is less than our expenses, we have what is called a deficit. Now, with a deficit, the government would either have to adjust its spending or it may have to borrow through loans and so forth. So earlier I spoke of long-term investments. So when we speak long-term, we speak of the future. So now we're going to look at the bigger picture. Now, the annual budget fits into two larger frameworks, which is the government's medium-term strategy, which is the National Sustainable and Development Plan 2035, and the country's long-term goals, which is Vision 75. Now I'm going to take you through understanding the budget as a process. Now, the budget is not a one-time event. It is something that it is a process. So we go through a different series of events in order to get the budget to formulate at the end. So like all other processes, we have to, the budget is financed or it is guided by a set of rules. Now, some of the rules that it is guided by are the Public Finance Act. And this act sets the rules for how the government plans to spend money and also how it plans to report the money spent. We also have the Fiscal Responsibility Act, and this act keeps the government's debt and spending sustainable through fiscal rules. Thirdly, we have the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property, and this act ensures fair and transparent value for money for government contracts. Also, the budget is also guided by other supporting laws, which you will hear throughout my presentation today. Now let's go through the budget process. Now the budget process has 13 steps. And those 13 steps is kind of broken down into 3 different phases. So phase 1 is called the preparation phase. And in that phase, the first step is the medium-term development priorities and the macroeconomic and fiscal focus, which my colleague will speak on during her presentation. Within this step, the Macroeconomic Policy Unit develops projections for the country's economy, and government finances. So that's things like revenue trends, the GDP growth, and even inflation. Step 2 speaks to the indicative aggregate ceilings to start the budget process, and that is where the document called the MTFF is introduced, and that is the medium-term fiscal framework. Now in this step, the MTFF sets the spending limit. That is how the government can realistically spend without exceeding its revenue. Step 3 of the process is the preparation of the budget framework and the medium-term economic and fiscal strategy. Now this shows the government spending and how it will manage its resources within 3 to 5 years. Step 4 is what we call the preparation and submission of the budget call circular. Allow me to provide you with this information. In 2025, the budget call circular stipulates the requirements that must be satisfied and followed in the preparation of the 2026 national budget. Accordingly, it outlines the budget calendar, instructions, procedures, processes, and templates for preparation and submission of the detailed budget estimates for vote pertaining to revenue where applicable, as well as current and capital expenditure for the budget year 2026, and also 2 forward years, which is 2027 and 2028. So that's the first 4 steps of the budget. We're going to move into phase 2 of the budget process, which is consultation and drafting. Now, we're at step 5, which is the public and sectorial consultations, and that is what we're having here today. We want to hear from you, the people, community representatives, private sector, civil society, so that we can create a budget that mirrors both the economical and social development of our people. Step 6 is the preparation and submission of the budget estimates by each vote to the Ministry of Finance. Now, when I speak about vote, I'm speaking of the different ministries within the government. We call them votes. So that's just a term that you can, yeah. So at this stage of the process, each ministry prepares and submits their detailed budget to the Ministry of Finance. And this takes us to step 7, which is where the Ministry of Finance holds consultations So we hold consultations with the different ministries and departments, and during this process, or this step, we revise and finalize the budget drafts or the draft budget estimates. The reason for conducting these consultations with the ministry is to ensure we have internal coordination, accurate budgeting, and to ensure that the government spending aligns with the national goals. So we're going to move to step 8 of the process, which is the presentations to Cabinet and the Finance Committee of the draft budget estimates that was prepared by the different line ministries. Now, in this, as it says, the draft budget is presented to the Cabinet and the Parliamentary Finance Committee, and at this stage, they discuss and they would approve the budget. So we're in the final phase of the budget process, which is called the approval and implementation part. This phase consists of step 9 to 13, and step 9 is the presentation to Parliament of draft budget estimates and the budget speech. Now, in this step, the Minister of Finance presents the budget speech to Parliament, and this enables for public accountability and transparency, because you, the people, want to know what is happening in the budget. You want your voice to be heard. You want to know that what you would have discussed today is put into the budget, and also that, you want to make sure that there's transparency. So this takes us to step 10, which we have where the Parliament debates and approves the budget. Now, after the approval of the budget estimates, we have what is called an appropriation bill, which is introduced and passed to the House of Representatives. Now, this bill enables the release of funds from what we call a consolidated fund, and it allocates them to specific departments and ministry. Now, at this point is where the Appropriation Act comes. So it is first a bill, and once the funds is released from the consolidated fund, then the Appropriation Act is enacted. So this takes us to step 11, which is the issuance of the general warrant. When I speak of a warrant, I'm not speaking of a police warrant or anything like that. I'm speaking of a document that authorizes the government expenditure from the consolidated funds. So now that the government has legal authority to spend money through the Appropriation Act, it takes us to step 12, which is the budget execution. Now, once approved, the Ministry of Finance issues guidelines for implementing the estimates of revenue and expenditure. At this point, ministries and departments begin to utilize the allocated funds as per the guidelines that they were provided with. And this takes us to our final step of the budget process, which is budget monitoring and reporting. Now, within this step, the Ministry of Finance, through the budget units, oversees implementation and monitors budget execution. The first quarter allocations are provided to ministry and departments under this step as well, and the budget unit issues quarterly ceilings by the 10th of the month before the next quarter begins. Now, within the steps, I would have spoken of approval and appropriation. So I'm just going to go through the approval process for the budget. Now, the Cabinet usually approves the budget in October, followed by the Parliamentary Finance Committee approval, which takes place at least 2 months before the fiscal year ends. And remember, I said the fiscal year is 12 months, usually January 1st to December 31st. So 2 months before that would be the end of October or early November, depending on how the timeline follows. The third part of the process is the presentation of national budget, and this usually happens in November or December, and it's followed by the House of Representatives. They debate and approve the budget in November or December as well. The final step of the process is where the Senate debates and approves the budget, and this is done in December. So let's understand the role of the budget unit within this entire process. So roles and responsibilities of the budget unit. So we coordinate and manage the development of the annual estimates of revenue and expenditure and supplementary budget. The budget is also responsible for ensuring that the process, which is the budget cycle and the calendar, is kept. We are also responsible for advising the government on the financial implication of budget proposals on issues arising from the implementation. Lastly, on approval of Parliament, the budget unit monitors and implements the execution of the budget. So we're practically responsible for ensuring that everything that is stated in the budget actually happens. Now, I'd just like to leave this note with you. The national budget is the most important tool. It demands integrity, seriousness, and public participation, which is where you come in. The feedback is therefore invaluable in ensuring that the budget truly reflects our collective needs. Thank you for your time and your cooperation. Also, I'd like to let you know that or encourage you to engage in meaningful dialogue, share your ideas, and work together so that we can make Grenada an inclusive one. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
So thank you very much, Mr. Andrews, Budget Officer within the Budget Unit of the Ministry of Finance. I trust that you heard some key things throughout the course of the presentation, that there are limits to government spending. The government can't just willy-nilly write check and just do things just like that. There's a whole 13-step process that Mr. Andrews just outlined, because things have to go through that process. And the Chief Budget Officer, along with the budget officers in the budget unit, they have the task of ensuring that things go according to that 13-step. All right, so even as we give our suggestions this evening, kind of bear that in mind, because sometimes people feel like it's like an open check and the Prime Minister could just write a check and make a thing happen. But things have to go through a process, and there are limits to how much they can spend. There are limits to what they can spend on, where they can spend. A ministry can't just do what it feels like, right? As you heard, the general warrant is issued as a part of this budget process. So if the budget process doesn't happen, so no budget would mean no warrant. No warrant means no spending. No spending means no projects, which means we're stuck. Yeah, so we have to go through the process. I hope you're seeing how important the budget process itself is. And Mr. Andrews also mentioned approvals. So it's not that, we as the Ministry of Finance or the government just comes up with these ideas and then we just, again, do things, right? It has to go through an approval process. Cabinet must approve it. The Parliamentary Financial Committee must approve it. That means opposition as well as government have to see and approve the budget. The House of Representatives, the Senate, everybody has to agree on this and approve it before any spending takes place, all right? And most importantly, we want that at the end of the day, what comes into the budget and eventually comes out of the budget reflects the needs of the people. And that's why the consultation part is so important. And that's why we're here this evening, and that's why we want to hear from you. But it's kind of difficult, I must be honest, it's kind of difficult to ask you to give me suggestions and not give you a sense of where we are as a country and as an economy. All right? And so because of that, we have a member of the policy unit. Remember, in the first stages of the process, the policy unit has to draft those documents that tell us how much we could spend, what our limits would look like, what the economy is doing, what the revenue looks like over the course of time, right? So they have the job of doing that. And at this juncture, I want to invite Ms. Cassandra Etienne. She's a member of the policy unit, a policy analyst in the policy unit, and she's going to give us a sense of what our country looks like as we head into preparations for the 2026 budget. Join me in welcoming Ms. Etienne to the podium.
On this side. Okay. Good evening once again to everyone. Now with formalities already observed. Okay, so with formalities already observed, I will now turn to the substance of today's presentation. On the macroeconomic context for the 2026 budget. So our economy is affected not just by what happens here in Grenada, it also takes into account what happens in other countries. Therefore, the purpose of this presentation is to present the international and regional developments, the 2020-25 review of real sector developments, and the 2025 review of fiscal revenue and expenditure, along with the medium-term outlook, and to look at some key takeaways. So when preparing the national budget, it's important to look at international and regional developments in gross domestic product, other known as GDP, which is the total value of goods and services a country produces. We monitor this because what happens in the world and nearby countries affect us here in the economy. For international developments, it is observed that global growth is estimated to be 3.0% in 2025 and expected to grow to 3.1% in 2026. Advanced economies such as US, the UK, and Canada are expected to have low growth over the medium term, also known as like the next 3 years. Emerging markets like China and developing economies like ourselves here, Grenada, and other members in CARICOM are projected to have stronger growth that will be broadly stable. Risks to global growth are expected to be tilted to the downside, influenced by geopolitical tensions, climate change, and the new trade barriers. For regional developments, it is observed that Grenada's real GDP has been estimated to expand by 4.2% in 2025, while regional growth is projected to accelerate in 2026, with average growth in the ECCU of 3.5% in 2025 and average growth in CARICOM of 3.3% in 2025. Now we'll examine the real sector developments, focusing on sectors that reveal how the economy is truly performing. The indicators used to measure the agriculture sector are derived from data of the yields of banana, nutmeg, mace, and cocoa, and other M&IB purchases of other crops. In the first quarter of 2025, banana production increased slightly compared to 2024, but nutmeg, maize, and cocoa and other crops purchased by M&IB fell sharply. The biggest declines were in nutmeg and maize, both down to more than 77.6% and 79% respectively. This drop was mainly because of Hurricane Beryl in 2024, which we all know destroyed many trees and farms, leaving less to harvest. It is also important to note that nutmeg and cocoa trees take a long time to regrow, so their recovery is expected to be slow over the next few years. The fisheries sector experienced severe disruption from Hurricane Beryl as well in 2024, which damaged particularly the northern areas where their vessels, gear, and fish markets sustained significant damages. Despite these setbacks, targeted government support in 2025 led to a slight increase in fish production by 1% and 1.1%, rise in fish exports in the first quarter. The construction sector is projected to experience strong growth of 8.6% in 2025, primarily driven by post-Hurricane Beryl recovery efforts and major public and private projects. Because of this, the sector faces challenges such as rising in material costs, labor shortages, and a shift towards direct material sourcing, highlighted by the 78% increase in imports of construction materials and the 30% decrease in retail sales of building materials. Mining is also anticipated to have expansion with a projected growth of 10% in 2025. While retail sales for construction materials declined due to shifts towards direct sourcing, other retail segments experienced a robust 25.7% growth. The wholesale and retail trade sector showed strong resilience, with total retail sales increasing by 13.3% to 70.8 million in the first quarter of 2025. Grenada's tourism sector experienced a mixed performance in the early year of 2025, with stayover arrivals declining to 12.7% from January to May compared to an expansional 2024. Yet, cruise passenger arrivals, yes, it's right down to the bottom, grew significantly by 17.2%, surpassing pre-pandemic levels. In the first part of 2025, visitor arrivals from almost all major market sources declined compared to 2024. The largest drop was from Europe at 27.4%, followed by Canada, 18.3%, and the Caribbean, 16.6%. As well as with the United States, 11.1%, and the United Kingdom at 7.7%. The small increase came from other markets, which would be basically other countries, and it grew by 1.5%. Regarding passenger movements, Grenada will have seen a decline in the number of persons both embarking and disembarking the island in the first quarter of 2025 compared to 2024. This observation is in line with aircraft movement in Grenada for the first quarter of 2025, which declined compared to the first quarter of 2024. Outbound cargo grew by 21.8% in 2025, quarter one, reaching 13,920 tons compared to the 11,424 tons in quarter one of 2024. Inbound cargo rose by 12.1% in quarter one of 2025, reaching 200,613 tons compared to 179,026 tons in quarter one of 2024. This upward trend in cargo handling is a positive signal of increased economic activity, particularly in sectors such as construction, agriculture, and fisheries. Okay, so moving on to inflation. Inflation is a rise in the average prices of goods and services that people buy, as we know. It is measured using the Consumer Price Index, which tracks how the prices of everyday items like food, fuel, and clothing change over time. From January to May 2025, prices in Grenada changed only a little compared to the same price period in 2024. Food prices were 1.4% higher on average, while fuel prices were 0.4% lower. Overall prices for goods and services went up by just 0.5% on average. From the year-on-year standpoint, prices in Grenada were mostly stable over the year. Food became a bit more expensive, fuel got a little cheaper, and overall inflation was nearly flat. Food prices went up by 1.2%, and fuel prices went down by 0.6%. So fuel costs slightly less overall, and the overall prices stayed almost the same, with a very small drop of 0.1%. So looking at the labor force survey, unemployment rate fell from 28.4% in quarter two of 2020 to 12% in quarter three of 2024, notably with youth unemployment remaining relatively high. Okay, so next we're going to look at revenue and expenditure for 2025 thus far, because they show how much money the government collects and how much is going to be spent, or is being spent rather. By comparing the two, the government can see if it is enough money to cover its plans and if it needs to cut or borrow or find new income revenues, or sources, I should say. So looking at the revenue generated from January to May 2025, the government collected more money than expected, collecting a total of 527.3 million in revenue and grants surpassing the targeted 525.2 million. Most of this came from higher taxes on income, spending, and trade, as well as extra money from fees like IMA receipts. However, property taxes and grants were much lower than expected. Overall, the tax collections on transactions from both domestic and international helped cover the shortfall of other areas. For expenditure from January to May 2025, the government spent less than planned, with the total spending of 541.6 million compared to the target of 589.8 million. This was mainly because regular day-to-day expenses like salaries and goods and services, along with interest payments, were lower than expected. However, current transfers were slightly higher, and big projects like capital spending stayed on track. Finally, we will look at fiscal balances, other known as primary and the overall balances. Here, primary balances after grants, which shows if the government's money, revenue and grants is enough to cover its spending without counting interest payments on debt. It tells us whether the day-to-day income can handle the day-to-day expenses. overall balance after grants shows the government's full financial position after grants, including interest payments. It's the bottom line of whether the government ended up with extra money, which is like a surplus, or spent more that is earned, which makes it a deficit. So for the period January to May 2025, the primary balance after grants recorded a surplus of 2.8 million compared to a targeted deficit of 44.4 million. This represents a positive variance of 47.2 million, or an improvement over 100%. Similarly, the overall balance after grants stood at a deficit of 14.3 million, which is substantially better than the projected deficit of 64.6 million. This reflects an improvement of 50.3 million, or nearly 78%. To summarize the estimated outturns for the full year of 2025, while grants have underperformed, the strong performance of tax and non-tax revenue has kept the total revenue and grants above target for the first 5 months of 2025. This positive fiscal outturn reflects improved tax administration, strong economic activity in key sectors, and robust non-tax inflows. Capital spending has met expectation. However, the overall expenditure is significantly below budget, driven by underspending in employee compensation, goods and services, and interest payments. At the same time, current transfers have been higher than anticipated, reflecting the government's continued commitment to social and economic support. These stronger than expected balances was driven by a higher revenue performance and a lower than planned recurrent expenditure, underscoring the progress made in the maintaining fiscal discipline while responding to national priorities. Now we will take a look at the medium-term outlook for 2026 to 2028. Looking ahead, the medium-term, Grenada's economy is projected to maintain moderate but steady growth over the period 2026 to 2028. Real GDP growth at market prices is expected to slow down from the post-hurricane rebound of 4.2% in 2025 to 3% in 2026. To 2.6% in 2027 before strengthening slightly to 3% in 2028. In terms of sectorial performance, agriculture should recover slowly after the big setback in 2024 due to Hurricane Beryl, while manufacturing is projected to remain mediocre. Construction, tourism, trade will lead the way, supported by the rebuilding of new investments, and private education will have only small improvements. So while the medium outlook points to steady growth and fiscal consolidation, it is important to recognize that the projections are not without vulnerabilities, such as being at risk from natural disasters and climate change, which could change the country's financial results from what is expected. The economy depends a lot on what happens in the world, such as wars like Israeli-Palestine conflict, which can raise oil prices and also impact our economy here. Expensive fuel and food from abroad can push up prices as well here at home, and the world economy is recovering slowly, and the trade prices uncertainties are making it weaker. So that as well can affect us. The key takeaways. So Grenada's economy is expected to grow a little over 3% in the coming years. Government finances will be weaker in 2025, but should get better by 2026 to 2027. Fiscal rules are on the pause for now, with plans to follow from them again in 2027. The primary balance is set to improve, but risk remains, of course, from natural disasters, high global prices, and changes in the world economy. Okay, so thank you all for listening. So now we're going to hear from you guys, hopefully. But first, let me hand you over to Mr. John.
So thank you very much, Ms. Etienne. I'm going to leave the slide that contains the key takeaways up for us to reference as we get into the discussion portion where we hear from you. But before we go there, I want to do two things. One, I want just to lay out some of the government's key priorities for 2026. So you've heard the positions that we're in. You've also heard the projections where we expect things to go. And the policy division has quite a task on their hands in that they have to take the data and make predictions as to where things are going to end up all the way up to 2028. All right? But as you know, no man really knows the future. So things could just happen. All right? And so as Ms. Etienne pointed out, there are some risks. Right? We don't know what's going to happen with the various wars that are taking place, and they may escalate or they may subside and things may be a little bit easier. Right? We don't know when the next hurricane is going to hit. I'm sure many of you saw advisories go out concerning Kikem Jenny. Right? Hopefully nothing happens, but again, we don't know. So we take everything with a grain of salt, but regardless of what could be, we have to plan. And we have to use what is to plan for what could be. So the government has some key priorities, and I want to make sure I get this right. So I'm going to do a rare thing, which is read on stage. My English teacher would be so disappointed in me right now. But, miss, I apologize. So ladies and gentlemen, the key priorities for government for 2026. I'm sure you could guess the first one, because we had a hurricane in 2024. So completing the rebuilding process post-Hurricane Beryl remains one of the priorities of government. That's not going anywhere until we get our nation back on its feet the way it was before. In addition to that, there are some key projects that are on everybody's tongues right now. So I say project, you will likely say Polaris. I think some of you read the mind, right? And we know that Project Polaris addresses the healthcare situation in Grenada. So healthcare remains a priority for our government. If I say project and you don't say Polaris, you're probably going to say skills, because education and skills training remains a priority for the government. In addition to that, we know that fuel prices and their fluctuations have impacted us, kind of had us topsy-turvy for a while, and so the government has committed to this transition away from depending on fossil fuels. It's not that we won't be using, it's that we won't be depending on fossil fuels, and we're moving to more sustainable forms of energy. And you're going to hear quite a bit about that over the coming months and years. So there's a transition to renewable energy that will remain a focus of government. The provision of low-cost housing remains a priority of government. So some of these things I'm sure you heard last year, because as was outlined through the presentations, the year-to-year budget fits into a longer-term plan. So it's not every year we just come willy-nilly and we change things and we do things. We're fitting year to year. Each year becomes a step towards a particular goal that we're heading towards. All right, and at this point, I want to ask you if you have any questions concerning the presentation on policy that from policy that you just heard. Are there any figures that you want clarified? Are there any trends that you saw that maybe you want to ask a few more questions on. All right, now would be a good time to do so. The mic is at the front. You can just come up to the mic and ask your question. So the floor is open. Any questions concerning our policy presentation? Don't be shy.
Okay, good evening again, everybody. If I can just kick things off. One of the comments made, first of all, thank you for the presentation. It's really excellent. Thank you so much. Youth employment remains relatively high. What are some of the drivers for this, right? And then secondly, I noticed in the medium-term forecast that the projection for agriculture, even after the very, I guess, good rebound after the hurricane, seems to be quite low. And then you did not mention agriculture in the priorities. So maybe if you could just, I don't know if it's there and you didn't get down that far, but I did not hear agriculture mentioned in the priorities there. So,
Right.
so the youth unemployment and then the agriculture, why is the medium-term focus for agriculture not as positive?
All right, excellent. So first, let me rescue my job. It is among the other priorities, so it's in the list, enhancing productivity and resilience across key productive sectors such as agriculture, fisheries, tourism, the cultural and creative industries. So it is in here. It's quite a list, and I chose to highlight some of the key ones as opposed to list them all out. All right. Again, hopefully my boss didn't see me. As for the youth unemployment, I'll allow our policy analysts to comment on the factors that affect the trends that we're seeing where youth unemployment is concerned.
I was actually trying to pull up the data, but for the youth unemployment, usually that data we get from CSO, and it was just a total given to us in terms of male versus female and their age groups. So in terms of figuring out what the drivers is, we will have to do some research into that. But it was noted that the youth from 15 to 24 was significantly higher than from ages 25 and above.
Sorry, from 15 and up, sorry? Yeah, can you just go over the range again?
Just give me one moment. Yeah, it was from 15.
And while you're looking, maybe if I may, please.
Go ahead.
I think there's a general observation in Grenada that there's a lot of work that's available. Mm-hmm. But when we speak with construction workers, farmers, there's a general lack of productivity, especially among certain segments, right? We drive around Grenada all the time.
Right.
And I think none of us is blind to the realities that we see. We have a numbers of our young people who, when it's time for a productive work day, they are missing. So the question is, what can we do nationally to address this? Because our productive sectors are at risk. And seriously, if we do not address that problem, I think what we're going to find is more and more imported workers, which I think we've seen some trends like that already. So I think strategically, nationally, we really do need to kind of really go down and understand why this is happening. Many of our young, I mean, I don't want to beat up on young people, right? Because, we have to consider all the factors.
Yeah.
But the reality is that many are kind of have a mentality of, you say, eat a food kind of thing, right? They want to make a hustle, long-term commitment, customer service, productivity. All right, and I know we've raised the minimum wage, but what I did not hear as a parallel conversation is raising minimum productivity.
Right.
So in other words, employers are asked to pay more, but most times they get less output. So I'm just saying that as part of the consultation, what are we addressing what we see as some gaps in the process there.
So thank you very much for that commentary. And I heard many nods, and well, I can't hear nods, but I heard many groans of approval as you spoke, which suggests that you are correct and we are seeing. And I do want to pose the question to you because it's something that we do have to grapple with, not just at the ministry, but across the entire country. What can we do to affect the young people that we see, that the terms currently being used to represent them are unemployed and unemployable? I still consider myself young, so when we talk like that, it hits me somewhere. So what do you think we can do to address and perhaps change that so that we move them out from being unemployable to being ready and willing to work? Do we have any suggestions? Come forward, sir, by all means. You can take the mic. Your voice is loud and rather powerful, but there are some folks who are joining us online, and we want to make sure that they can hear your contribution as well. So first off, thank you for standing and being willing to share. By all means, proceed.
Okay, thank you. I don't think what I'm about to say is new because when I listen to your list of priorities, I think one of the first priorities you mentioned is skills training.
Yeah.
So the question of skills training, I guess, would play a fundamental role because the area, one of the challenges we have is that the demand for labor cannot be met because persons are not trained in certain skills. So I believe, and I want to suggest that the fast tracking of skills training should be responsive to those demands. I guess in the surveys that we do, or that we did, it would highlight which are the areas that are in high demand and which are the areas that are, we are attracting overseas laborers. So then the question is that we need to balance, or we need to fill that gap with the whole focus on skills training. So I believe that in the priorities of the government, skills training is suitably placed because of its importance in meeting that challenge that we're facing. That's what I think.
Excellent. Thank you so very much, sir. I saw another hand. All right, so policy analyst has some information for us.
Okay, so I know the comment that you just considered from 16 and up, but based on the data how we were given from CSO, it was from the range 15 to 24, what was used as an indicator for youth. I know it is not accurate, and I know there are measures that are being taken into place to do not want to update into how data is collected, not just for youth, but for every sector. So that is going to be noted for any future references.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you so very much, Ms. Etienne. Any other questions on the presentations? I'm going to head back to the key takeaways slide again, just so that we can reference that as we deliberate this evening. All right, I see another question.
Just a question,
Okay,
but a comment.
comment.
I want to support my colleague Jude as a co-representative of programs in Grenada that work with young people under age, let's see, from 13 to about 29. This may be a simplistic way of trying to paint the picture, but I think it's important for us, and we're here particularly to do that. The Employer Satisfaction Survey done by the National Training Agency a couple of years ago reported that employers find soft skills among our youth, 8 of them as a top challenge when they employ young people. So this is not just anecdotal, this is done by survey. That's one. I'm trying to put them together so we paint the picture. You just mentioned the matter of high youth unemployment. So we have employers unsatisfied with youth performance, lack of punctuality, lack of productivity, and the rest of it that we're familiar with. The Criminal Records Office of the Royal Grenada Police Force is reporting lower and lower ages of young people who are charged for various whatever against the law and appearing in court. This morning we had a young man, 17, that our team went to represent at the court for a weapon, carrying a dangerous weapon. At the same time, our private sector senator is appealing to the Senate to import labor. Right? And our government's TVET policy has prioritized TVET, technical and vocational education and training, in the country to start to address that. The question therefore becomes, how do we in this budget prioritize technical and vocational education and training relative to the allocations to academic work, academic programs, regular school, the mainstream school system? Because maybe if we examine the budget, we'll find there's great disparity with what is being allocated for technical and vocational education and training, and that with formal education. Right. Our young people are falling out of the formal educational system, ending up in crime, ending up in prison. And we are not investing enough in preparing them for the workforce. In fact, I'll say it and be very clear about it, we've had a program, the MANI program, that has employed, quote-unquote, young people, assigned them to jobs, but not requiring a lot of productivity. So we have had the emanization of our youths, where they are paid money, but they're not required to produce and perform. At the same time, we are looking at importing labor. And I'm not against importing labor, don't get me wrong. But why would we focus on importing labor while we are not putting as much investment into the young people who are sitting around and that we're complaining about that are unproductive?
Excellent. Thank you so.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So if I'm hearing correctly, you're advocating for an increase in the allocation of budget resources towards TVET and TVET training, particularly to target young people. All right? So we have our team here, and they are taking notes, so we will note that as we continue forward. Yes, sir?
Yes, good evening. I must apologize for being late, so I'd have missed most of what was said. But you said to refer to the key takeaways?
Yes, sir.
So point number 1, the growth projected to average just over 3%, right?
Yes, sir.
And we're talking about growth in what?
The GDP.
Oh, growth in GDP, right. So the GDP is a very topical issue, and it's of great concern to me, because it helps with my projection as to what my real income will be in 2026, since that there is a direct correlation between the GDP and government expenditure vis-a-vis salaries. So I want you to help me to start to calculate my expectations. What has Grenada GDP been in 2024 in terms of millions? So that I can calculate the 3%, so that I can calculate the 13%, so that I can get a fair idea as to what the government might be offering. So, then we ain't talking a vacuum about 3% growth. 3% on what? Because it says weak fiscal performance in 2025, and I see deficit there. So that means that, you know, things ain't looking so rosy. I do not want to have to cut down one of Grenada telephone posts to get a salary increase. So it's best that you start talking that as early as possible so that we as a nation can understand that you can stretch your hand further, your hat, put your hat higher than where your hand can reach. All right? The payment of pensions, and I say payment of pensions because pensions was always being paid. However, people like me would not have gotten a government pension. So in other words, government has greater expenditure when it comes to pension. A lot of people who would have not gotten pension have left the job with a pension. So that is an increase in expenditure. So that would be measured against the GDP at some point. So let's talk real figures on the GDP. How much millions? And also, as we speak GDP, we must look at increasing productivity because this is what is important. How can we produce more to get more? How can you encourage teachers to encourage their students to produce more to get more? We have to talk that talk in a serious way, or else we'll be just spinning top in mud. On the issue of skills training and expenditure, the government, maybe in my opinion, I don't know, I'm not supposed to comment on it too much because I can bring my job into disrepute. But the fact that school age has increased to 18, without a clear indication as to what is expected of persons in school, right? We speak a lot of skills training, and we have to have that, yes, but agriculture is our fundamental resource. But long ago, I used to tell children, well, if you done something stupid, your cutlass go be your pen. Not many people want their pen to be a cutlass. And so they're not really gravitating towards the agriculture. They ain't even using weed eater if you give them a chance. And also the government relief program is affecting agriculture adversely. Because people go on the relief program for 2 hours. And they expect to come by me for the same 2 hours and earn $60, $70, $80, $90, $100. When I balance that with the cost of the crops produced, can't work. So we had to get serious. We had to bite the bullet and do what is necessary to get the country moving. When it moves, all of us will move. But I detracted a little bit. And I asked, what are we expected to do with the children up until age 18? Most time at 16, a child leave and go and make a pankwai. Because of the economic situation. We are mandating that 18 is the cutoff age now. So we have to look at that carefully. It means more expenditure from government, but it means at the end of it, that expenditure must redound to benefit the whole nation. More carpenters, more mechanics, more computer technicians, but most importantly, more workers in a scientific way for agriculture. Or else, we'll have to import cheap labor for agriculture.
Thank you very much, sir. You gave us quite a bit to consider. You did ask for the GDP in real dollars. I would not deign to put my colleague in the hot seat to call off GDP in real dollars. That's calculations that I would not put on her in this moment. But she did highlight the primary and overall balances in her presentation. So I'm just going to quickly pop back to that slide because that's going to help us understand the government's fiscal position as is. All right. Ms. Etienne, just for the benefit of those who may have joined us a bit late, can you just once again explain what we're seeing on the primary balance and overall balance slide? You can stay where you are. So while Ms. Etienne preps that, I know we had a question from Sir at the front, so I'll take you next. And I believe I did see another hand somewhere on this side, so we'll also entertain those questions, queries, comments, and suggestions.
My comment is this, that we always reach a stage where we identify problems. But then when it comes to the solution of the problems, we are either fearful or we are very reluctant to do that. Now, when we talk about youth and youth labor and look youth empowerment, we have to go back to the question of discipline. I always say, education does not make somebody successful. It is the discipline that makes them successful. So we need to go back to our schools, right? Working with Ministry of Youth and Education, let us instill a discipline system in our schools. We're not talking about punishment. We're talking about discipline. Because it's only when the mind is disciplined that the body responds in terms of work and in terms of development. The question of labor. I do not know why people are so fearful about importing labor. All countries over the world were developed on imported labor. Grenadians used to go to Trinidad to work. They used to go to Venezuela. They go to Canada. They go to the US. So why are we so reluctant? We want labor. So bringing in labor might be the means of motivating our young people. Right? So that if they see, okay, that people are coming in, then they will say, no, I need to get up and get. So we need to focus on labor in agriculture if we want to improve production. I was a young man. I worked on 3 estates when I was a young man. The reason I did it, because I wanted to have an income. So we have to learn that we have to develop ourselves, and we have to learn to develop the mind of our young people. That is where the problem lies. And we have to go back to our schools. Both teachers, principals, ministry officials, ministry department, supposed to inculcate a level of discipline that will lead itself to production. So if we do not change the attitude of our people, improving their skills, increasing their knowledge, won't definitely do it. We have to get them to be able to have that kind of discipline to be able to achieve what we want to achieve in this country.
Excellent. Thank you very much, sir. So I'm hearing you're in favor of a policy position to import labor into the island in order to increase agricultural production. I'm hearing quite a few murmurs of approval. Again, we are taking notes, so that may be one of the things that the policy unit or the budget unit can recommend to the ministry in charge of such. Ms. Etienne, are we ready? Primary balance?
Okay, so just to go over once again, for primary balance after grants, that's basically to show if the government is making enough money or generating enough revenue for the day-to-day, so it can handle day-to-day expenses. And for the overall balance after grants, it shows the government's full financial position after grants, so including interest payments. So it is whether the government end up making, what you will see if you make extra money, which would be a surplus, or if we haven't earned enough, so we'll make a deficit. So based on what was shown here, we can see for the overall balance, it's actually a deficit. But keep in mind that these actuals are just for January to May. So it could change because we may be able to generate more revenue or maybe allocate some of the expenditure elsewhere and all those things like that. And referring to the GDP actuals, now, as mentioned before, we get our data, and obviously it's calculated, so it will be updated. What we have here is based off of Q1 actuals. So for 2025, it was actually estimated to be 3.9 billion, right? So that would be 4.8% growth compared to what was in 2024, which was $3.8 billion. Billion dollars, yeah. Sorry.
All right, so sir, I trust that answers your question, your GDP in real numbers. We see another hand from the floor. Please come forward.
A peace and a pleasant good afternoon. I greet nobody, everybody in Jesus' almighty name, okay? And my name is Mary, okay? I live at Beaton St. David. And I work very hard. I'm a very hard-working woman, okay? But I have a problem in my garden. Garbage in Salzburg. They say you turn me into a dummy. They're going to kill me and all kind of thing, okay? And for I to tell you now, so go and see my cousin in my garden with garbage and no respect for me. Big men, gambling, they put up tent, I can't tell them nothing. They promised to kill me and nothing. So I went to St. Paul's police station. I went to the ministry twice. Nobody never came. I went to St. David's. I went over 5-6 hours. Nobody never came to see my concern garden, and them men that bring me garden this damage. I don't see some to say the pen and train, okay? Everybody know me, okay? I dive in, I go and do my crab in the night, I do all things for myself. I'm going to 73 years of age, and I'm pleading to whoever you are trying to come and see my garden and put our peace in my garden. That's the prayer of my heart, in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you very much for sharing. We are sorry that you are experiencing that type of difficulty. We do thank you for going through the proper channels, which is reporting to the Royal Grenada Police Force. And I would encourage you is how the final draft of the budget is going to come to fruition. So at this stage, that is not yet ready, but as soon as it is, as soon as it is time to present to the public, then you would be able to see exactly how things are allocated.
Yeah, because I mean, that really is going to be what gives us the idea as to how serious and how, how the commitment for saying what's priority is, right? Because
Right.
I've been to budget consultations already, and the areas that have been given as priorities in the narrative, when the actual figures come out, it didn't line up.
Right.
So we just want to see how eventually the lineup goes as far as the priorities go, right? CARICOM, I've noticed that the growth projection for CARICOM is actually higher than some of the major economies, which I think is good. So, but the question is, and it may be a budget question or not, but as a Caribbean, right, I realize that there are lots of opportunities within the Caribbean. And so I'm wondering how much, you may or may not be able to answer the question, but I'm saying take it back as a suggestion, how we can strengthen our regional potential in terms of both production and all of that, so that the islands benefit, because you did indicate there are some international developments that we have no control over. In fact, I called the post office this morning. Tuesday, there was a notice on GBN last night that no more packages can be shipped to the U.S. I called myself to verify this morning. The post office said that's correct. No packages. I called them Maryjet. They said, no, we're still okay with it because they have not received the directive. But the point is that the international value is changing quite rapidly. So as a region, how can we strengthen ourselves so that the shock of the internet, what's happening internationally is not as, as shocking. All right. Because, case in point, travel around the Caribbean. We say CARICOM. Listen, it's taking more time and it's costing much more money to do business and to carry on activities within the Caribbean than to go North America, Europe, and so on. I think if you want to see this fixed, governments, I'm not talking about, would have to take a very collective and serious approach to fixing a lot of the issues that we have as far as, regional trade, regional travel, regional productivity, and so on. So it becomes a conversation not just for Grenada, but for the wider Caribbean. And then learning from best practices, right? Islands that are really strong, what's Grenada learning, even the budgets and everything. What are we learning from the other islands that are doing better at some of the things that we are trying to be good at? So we can then collectively grow together. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your contribution, sir. Does anybody from the head table want to tackle those? I'm staying in the hot seat. Very well, not a problem. But I will say, though, the idea of regional travel has come up in several of our sectoral consultations, and many people have expressed the same thing you have, that it's cheaper to go to the US than it is to fly to one of our neighboring islands, and we do talk regional integration. And so the real question is, and I can put it to all of us in the room, how do we make it cheaper for our neighbors to come here? And if it is cheaper to fly to the various islands, are we prepared to travel to those various locations? We have another question, by all means, sir. Comment, suggestion.
Good night. Good night to the constituency. Good night to the head table. I am from Corinth, Badia, to be specific. I'm here to address approved projects, right, a couple of years ago. I want to play this video because I have evidence and it's long overdue, and I want to be perceived as a reasonable guy, right? But I'm also a citizen paying tax, right? The community as well.
That SAEP is also doing some of the road and SAEP Smart Agricultural Enterprise Project. They'll be building roads and they will be concreting those roads. They have already started in Clocher, Palmis, and Granton, that's in Willis. Those roads are in advanced stages. There are some other roads that SAEP will be taking on board this time. We have Dumfries in Carriacou, Springs Garden in St. Andrew, Rookie in St. David, Maitland Road in St. Andrew, Badia St. David, Fairfield St. David, Chambo St. Patrick, and Mount Rule Pleasant in St. Patrick. So those are some of the roads that SAEP will be have already have funding for, and they are putting systems in place to ensure that those roads happen. Now all this.
No. With that said, Badia Road I'm addressing. Badia Road has been approved since 2023, in January. The person speaking there is the Honorable Senator Adrian Thomas at the material time, right? He spoke about Badia Road being approved under SAEP. However, time has passed. It was also mentioned by the Honorable Minister of Finance, Cornwall, in the last budget sometime in March, wherever. So on the behalf of Badia people, I'd like to know what is going on with this approved project and why is it taking so long for it to be put into action. Thank you very much. I need answers, please. Thank you.
All right, so at this point, I'm going to invite the Senior Budget Officer, Mr. Justin Assad, to perhaps shed a bit of light on that, if he can.
Thank you, my colleague, Mr. John. What I will say, even in my officer presentation, we did talk about the budget is not cast in stone. And sometimes government priorities do shift. And you can recall that in 2024 we had Barrett. So what might have happened, that some of the priorities will have to shift. Government will have to shift their priorities to focus on the development of Carriacou and the northern part of the island. Now, another point too, that everything cannot be done in the same year. And as you say, it was approved in 2023, since that time you was talking, and the priority changed in 2024. I can't speak on the behalf of the Ministry of Infrastructure, who have the sole authority in terms of priority, in terms of road building. But what I can tell you is that once it was mentioned by the senator, that means it's somewhere on the priority list, and hopefully that government will look at it soonest. I hope that could satisfy you.
Comrade, I have heard you. I have another video, please. Thanks.
Ministry of Mobilization, Implementation, and Transformation in the next sitting of Parliament.
This is the Honorable Cornwall, Minister of Finance, in the budget 2025. 2025.
Vote 26. Ministry of Economic Development, Planning, Tourism, ICT, and Creative Economy. There are 5 items on this vote. A sum of 15 million is required to finance Lot 2 and 3 for farm access roads at Mount Road, Barrier Bridge, Sham Road, Woken Road, Springs Garden Road, Dumfries Road, Mountain Road. The cost of construction exceeded the amount provided through the funding agency, thereby requiring additional local counterpart funding. A sum of 375,000 is needed to fabricate 15 hydroponic units, systems for schools within every constituency. This will serve as a model for climate resilience.
So, my videos are basically self-explanatory, and Badia, people in Badia really wants to know what is happening to our roads. There are roads that are being constructed not too far from us. We want to know what is happening. We believe that he was very reasonable, he was very patient. I have an opportunity here tonight. I am now showing myself at this platform. Please, sir, please, Ministry, please, Mr. Prime Minister, wherever you are, for St. David's, most honorable, most beloved Prime Minister, come to our rescue. We want to see your face in the road. When you build the road and you see the road, you see the most honorable Prime Minister. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much for your advocacy for your constituent, your area. We appreciate it. We thank you for it. And I will say that judging from the comments that you just shared in the 2025 budget, which we know was a bit late, it does augur well and testify to the fact that your project remains a priority of the government. It hasn't been shifted aside. It may have been delayed, as our senior budget officer mentioned, due to the readjusting of priorities, but it has not been forgotten. You have not been forgotten, and the government will continue to address as many of the issues as it can in the time that it has. All right? Go ahead.
Is it on? Oh, all right. The young man that just spoke, could you just come back and give the name of the place? I'm not familiar with the community. Or maybe if you could provide the proper spelling.
Good night again, like everybody trying to take my shine. Don't try to take my shine. Badia, B-A-D-I-A, current, St. David's.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, so I see another question, suggestion at the back. Please make your way forward. And thank you so much for your suggestions. We continue the discussion this evening. Every suggestion that you give is valuable and welcome. Yes, sir.
Okay, here am I again. It is not a suggestion. I think I'm in a position to share a little light on that same Badia project.
Okay.
Because it's not just Badia and St. David, it's also Rukade down in the agricultural section. So I was approached already, and in my own initiative, I called SAEP, and I asked, what's the update? The project is still an approved project. I explained that in the submission for the bidding documents, as of June 2025, the documents submitted for the bidding for the project failed to meet the requirements. So they had to go back through the process. And I was told that that might take another 3 months or so to go through the process and get the bidding documents right.
Right.
So the project is approved and ready, but I suppose the documentation was not. So then what I could do on behalf of the gentleman as well is to get an update as to what is the current process 3 months after June, July, August.
Right.
Find out what's the current situation on the project and probably send him a note, as I sent him before, in terms of the current state of the project.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I feel like that deserves a round of applause. That feels like people looking out for people, and I appreciate your intervention, sir.
Good night again for the third time. Now, Mr. Whiteman is just one of the several individuals I have engaged to try to put in train this project. And he is at the latter stage of me trying to find or generate some intervention, right? I really would like these ladies up here and yourself to take control of the situation. Please, thanks. Yes, because everybody else has failed. They have proven themselves to fail. Now, I want to give you, young ladies, an opportunity to prove yourself. I've given everybody else an opportunity. This is why I am now here. I just want to be reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So we continue with our queries, comments, suggestions. I see a hand at the back. I see 2 hands at the back, actually. So I'll take sir, and then you'll follow.
Pleasant good night.
Good night, sir.
To everyone, distinguished guests. And I'm Stephen Blackett, right? Leave Grenada at the age of 12. Lives in Trinidad over 41 years. I mean, my family is very big, the Blackett family. And what I'm seeing, just a couple of suggestions that I'm seeing right now that I would like to offer. First of all, I've seen roads development is taking place whereby no pavement, pedestrian sidewalk. That is a very crucial thing where accident and all those things can take place. So I would like to see that whenever a road is being constructed, let there be sidewalk for the pedestrian, right? Also, I'm seeing based on customer service, it is lacking in Grenada. I travel around the country. We purchased, about 40-something of us came down, right? The family, all from England, Canada, all over. And, you're going to groceries, you're going to certain places, and the customer service is very poor. So I would like to see the government do something where Grenada is on the growth. Out there, some of you guys may not know, but Grenada is highly, highly recommended as a travel destination, right? And I'm just telling all you, because, I travel abroad and, Grenada is recognizing, right? So I would like to at least recommend, let it be in the workplace, mandatory customer service, right? Because what will happen is, tourists will come, they want to purchase something they may not know. Remember, you sell in your country, right? And if they don't know, if they go and ask you as the worker, the employee, what can I do? What can I get? Where can I get something? Nothing. They watch you, they ignore you. And I find that was totally distasteful. right, on many occasions. Now, Grenadians have to be proud, right? Be proud of your country to represent your country. It is a tourist destination all over the world now, right? Another thing is, Grenada shut down too early. If you have tourists come here to spend money, not to come to sleep, right? And this is what we does out in China. There is no time to sleep. I ain't come here to sleep. I go back 3 o'clock in the morning, have to go back out to work also. So there's no time for sleeping. I come to enjoy myself, to spend something, to bring back the GDP in the country so the country could be on a growth, right? So those are the little things that the knickknacks, and the infrastructure is very, very needed in a growing economy, right? At least maybe you all could recommend some kind of concession and construction materials, whereby if it is that you're all bringing in outside labor, let it be done in a much more quick manner, you know? I mean, watching and seeing how I seen some of the development taking place, I mean, it is slow, right? Night work needs to be done also in construction, not only day, right? If you have a crew working in the night, you have a crew working in the day, let it be swift. Development is very, very important. The infrastructure in a country makes a country looks good, right? I mean, watching the roads and things, it's very narrow. I mean, me and my niece driving, and all we seeing on the road is white paint, simple accident, whereby, wow, that is horrendous, right? That doesn't make sense. So I'm asking to see, what do you need to upgrade a license, a gallon of white paint, and the insurance? That is all you have to drive here with? That is bad, right? So at least maybe the Ministry of Transport or something so could recommend defensive driving also in your presentation, whereby, because it's not looking good, whereby a tourist will come here having to drive, and this is the madness you see it, right? So this is my recommendation. Grenada is on the growth. Please take heed, people, respect your country, and know that you have to do the things whereby other people will be coming and looking at you. It's not all about you and you alone, it's for your generation, right? So that is all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Good night once again. So as it relates to customer service, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that is something that we need to implement and also actually spend money to ensure that we train our young people, because it is disheartening when you go into a workplace and the customer service is not there. So that ties back to the comment made earlier by one of the persons in the audience, where she said that she thinks that the mindset and the work ethic needs to change. Now, with that comes apprenticeship and mentorship, where we could train or basically pair the young people with persons that have the experience so that they can have hands-on training.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Andrew. Just before, there was a gentleman who had his hand up and has been waiting, so we'll take him and then you'll go. Okay. Yeah, so.
Yeah, pleasant good evening to all. My name is Anthony Wilkinson. I live at Park Estate. I operate an auto body shop there for the last 30 years. I've done quite some work in maintaining and building the road to accommodate my operation. And within recent time, I had a problem where the garbage truck came into the area and they slid off the road and created a deeper drain than was there. So I'm appealing for some assistance to help me with that road, to maintain it. What I would suggest is that we get a slipper drain to avoid that water, a lot of water like what we had today, a lot of runoff, and the drain is likely to get deeper and as a result undermine the road that is done and create further problems. So I would like something be done to help improve what is there and help assist with what need to continue. Also in regard to young people, wanting to learn this skill and getting involved, we have a serious problem. A lot of people that I've talked to in the same field with me, we have the same problem. We just can't get young people who are willing to learn this thing and to work. I consider myself 4 years into retirement, and I still have to keep going because there's no people that would really wanting to catch on, learn this thing. It's very lucrative, and I would hope that I don't know what the government can do, or we as a community can do to help our young people to, get their hands involved. That's my contribution.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, sir. And as you return, congratulations on 30 years in business. That's no easy feat, especially in this day and age. I'm trusting that the time would soon come when you'd be able to put up your feet and watch other people do the work that you've been doing. What I am hearing, though, is that you may be receptive to an apprenticeship program which has been mentioned this afternoon. And permit me, if I can, to challenge those of you in the private sector and those of you in trade and skills. We do recognize, and when I say we, I mean us as individuals, as members of this community, we recognize that there is an issue with young people and getting them into these areas. But I do have to ask, and this is my inner teacher here, I do have to ask that when programs like these come around, that we are receptive to helping the people who do not have the things that we want them to have, to develop those things. The patience to teach somebody who does not yet have the skill of customer service or punctuality or all those things that seem to come natural for you, but it's lacking in this young novice that you've taken on. To impart that requires a certain amount of patience. It requires a certain amount of deliberate, day-to-day, pick up your cross and follow me kind of output. And so it can get frustrating. And I'm speaking here again from my teacher hat now. And so I want to ask you that if you embrace, should the government move on this in the 2026 budget, and the policy position comes out that apprenticeship programs are opening up across the island, and you say, sign me up, know that you're signing up to change a life. And that takes deliberate day-to-day action. It's not a quick fix. All right? And so you may have some teething pains and some growing pains, but if you are committed to the cause, then I'm living proof that it's possible. All right? So that's my challenge to you as we take our next suggestion from the audience. Go ahead, miss.
I think you touched on what I was about to say on customer service. If you don't have it, you wouldn't gain it overnight.
Yeah.
And I must say to you, it's going to happen because our young people are being trained in customer service. I see them daily at our SGU. It's going to come. Why is it that when we leave this country and we go to North America, we're able to provide excellent customer service, and when we come back home, we forget about it? We need to help one another by encouraging simple, basic courtesies.
Yeah.
And it begins from home. Charity begins at home.
Thank you very much. It's been a while since I heard that phrase, but it's one of the statements I grew up hearing from my parents and grandparents. Charity indeed begins at home. I thank you for your optimism. The key takeaway slide is still up. All right, and it says that real GDP growth is projected to average 3% every year. It's a suggestion that things are on the up, just like Ms. said. The investments that are being made right now will eventually bear fruit. One of the earlier participants mentioned the idea of night work. I'm certain some of you have heard the advisory that has gone out regarding travel in the south of the island. Right now, as it is, you cannot travel Grenada's main road, all right? Because work is going on the road right now in the night. So from 7:30 to midnight, that road is shut down. So it's evidence that when we have these conversations, the suggestions that come out do eventually make it into the government's work plan. And that's why I want to encourage you. I mean, it might sound crazy, or it might sound out of the box, or it might sound not normal or native to Grenada, but don't sit on the idea that you have right now. I want to direct us to one of the slides that was presented by policy concerning tourism and the drop that we see in arrivals. And in light of the fact that, as mentioned, there are some global uncertainties. There are wars happening. We don't know what's going to happen with those. We were already feeling the fallout from the tensions in the U.S. concerning trade and tariffs and so. And so we don't know where where that's going to lead us. All right, we see an increase in cruise passengers, but as someone in one of the other consultations pointed out, the cruise ship is the destination for a lot of people. They come and they stay on the cruise ship. What's something that we can create? What's a location that we could transform? What's an experience that we can create, maybe in Virgin Parish, maybe outside of it, but is there something we can do to draw these people off of the ships and get them into the communities? Is there something? You know St. David better than anybody outside of St. David. Is there a place that if we throw some investment in there, perhaps we can build something like that? If you have suggestions, again, I'm hearing some murmurs, that means good energy in the room, so by all means, take it to the mic and share it with us. Yes, sir, come forward. Just before you go, sir, so we have an update from policy.
No, the gentleman before that came and mentioned the need for a slipper drain in a road. We just want the name of the road.
Parker State Road.
Yeah. No.
All right. Yes, sir. So your suggestion.
I think I've heard that sometimes before. This suggest natural works is an area that can be developed to accommodate visitors.
Right.
And also too, as with respect to tourism, there is no nightlife for tourists in Grenada. I remember a few years ago, on a Wednesday night, you had this crab race in some of the hotels, you have this dance, but there's no culture. So if there is nothing for the tourists to come here, because as I always say, you come to Grenada one day and you see the entire country. Right? So we need to have some kind of nightlife for tourists. We have Teacher Jean in Redgate, had a development there for tourism. We have Mr. Lambert in Laura. Then we have the Spice, well, I don't even want to call it a Spice Garden in Laura there. That's a place that could be developed. I went to St. Lucia. I was on a cruise, and we went to a place where they have all these natural herbs. And this young lady was telling the tourists, and I was able to identify all the herbs for her. She said, "You're from Grenada." So it means that they took the idea from Grenada and they developed into a tourist But I have 3 suggestions. It may not be applicable to this.
Right.
It is more to a town hall thing. One, these community centers that have been developed, we need facilities. I have been advocating that we need, if it's a smart board, in some of those community centers where we can use, programs and so on to develop our young people. Even children going to school, they can get assistance with the homework and so on. Because they're into technology. You don't want going on, So we want to be able to equip our centers. And I know for particular in Vincent's, what we need most, we need a smart board inside there. So we can develop also. Also, we have 1 tennis board there. But the number of people who come to practice on Saturday, it's a problem. So we are advocating that we get another tennis board for the Vincent's Community Center. No, because when I volunteer to assist, I get fellows like Ray Roberts and Carl Felix and so on. They come up and they train them on the Saturdays. But then when you have 15 children on one leg, it becomes a problem for that. Also, when we talk about youth, right, we always have to realize it's not only employment. We have to prepare them for that. And that is when it comes attitude. Right? We have to ensure that they have the right attitude. Now, most times, people have difficulty, but any business place I go to, whoever I meet, they have to smile before I do anything I have to do. Yes, I say, I work hard for my money, so when I come, I want to enjoy spending my money. So even though it's a fake smile, but you got to smile. I don't give him more money to any office. But also, I think there are different areas that we could develop. Look at Ashenden. At one time, I know it was a very productive estate. People used to visit to go Ashenden, see all the flowers, all the arrangements. But now there is nothing there. And I think that government has to take the initiative, right, in those things so that you can encourage private investment into things. But there's a lot of things in St. David's that we can do to enhance, right? And then also, we got to recognize that the people who in tourism, they must have a national outlook, and not only a St. George's outlook. You take them Annandale, you take them Fort Frederick, and then you go anything and you go back home, right? So we have to encourage that. And as I said, the whole education system, it has to involve around everything. Because as we develop, it means that we have to expand the way we think. Okay?
All right, thank you so much. So before we continue, let me just make sure that I got all the suggestions. I'm hearing perhaps a policy position to smarten our community centers. All right. I suppose that can tie into the government's trust to make the public buildings greener, more solar powered. So perhaps that's something we can take forward. I heard develop the Ashenden propagation station into an attraction as opposed to just an outpost, and to expand our tourism product to affect the rural areas. All right? Did I get that right? Awesome sauce. We'll take our next suggestion.
Pleasant good night to everybody. I'm standing here as a retiree. I was a teacher, but I placed myself into agriculture now. I enjoy it a lot. The minimum wage increase, but the labor decrease. Right. I don't have a problem paying for my labor. You come, you tell me you're working for X amount of money, although we have a fixed minimum wage. But I want my work done. You tell me $100. If I could afford it, I give you $100. Yeah. I don't have a problem, but I want labor for my money. And I want to support Mr. Ogilvy and importing labor, because I have a serious problem with some of the people that you work so hard, you retire, and you still place yourself in a position that you want to develop your country. right? Because when I sell my stuff to Real Value, sometimes before you turn around, they want this, they want that, I cannot supply. But when you come to work for me and I have to give you $100 and you want to rob me, I have a problem with that. So I support importing labor. The next one I will put to the policymakers. There is a little village, two villages where I come from in St. David's, Dudma and Vincent, what we call Jackie. That Jackie was my road to take me to St. Teresa's RC School. And we never had a bridge over that river. We used to jump on a bamboo like little canoe when the river overflowed to get to our home and to get to school. We survived. So I would like to see a bridge over that river. They already graded the road to take us up back to Dudma, the public road. It was condemned, but now they revitalized the road. So we want a bridge over the river. Please, we begging for Jackie. They concrete the road, the present past government concrete a certain portion of the road, and they did not put a bridge over the river. And the children in that area, the school children, they use that road every day to get to their home up in Dudma. Right. If the river overflowing and they cannot pass that road, they use the Dudma road, which should have a small bridge. And when that bridge overflow, it's like we're stuck in the center. So we need a bridge in Dudma, inside the cocoa we call Dudma, and we need a bridge over Jackie River. I really want the policymaker to put that down on the book so we can get these two bridges. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think it's safe to say it's been noted. We have another suggestion.
I want to broaden the issue of importing labor by making a ridiculous comparison. The issue is not strictly about importing labor. Grenadians go abroad and get jobs.
Right.
That is not the issue. We ignore the slow developmental issue of what we do with our young people that requires work and effort if we only think of the quick fix of importing labor. How do we balance between the two? Because last year, in March, April, it took 3 young Grenadians to hold our country at ransom because we were not paying attention to the deficit that we have in the number of young people who fall out of school and have no attention thereafter. If you check the statistics and look. So the principle is not strictly about whether or not, to me, we import labor, because Grenadians go abroad. We are imported labor when we're in New York in a way, or where other parts of the country, or Latin Americans are imported on farm labor, Grenadians are imported on farm labor in Canada. My issue is, while we import labor, maybe as a short-term measure, or they get integrated into the community eventually, what are we doing about the hard work of developing our own young people who, if we ignore, could end up like the 3 who went and stole the yacht, slaughter people in our community? We have to find a delicate balance. But that brings me to another issue that I think has not been getting enough attention. Charity begins at home. We need to emphasize, prioritize, helping to build parenting skills among our parents. Many of them are young and do not have the requisite skills to really do what is needed to raise their children to become productive adults. And I remember in talking to the head of the Criminal Records Office, the chief, the inspector, or whatever his position was, and I asked him, so what do you credit for the number of these young boys, 12, 13, and 14 years old, who are arrested for all kinds of illegal activities? The parents, the example of their older brothers and sisters, and other people in the community. USAID did a study recently about the 5 main factors that contribute to crime or criminal behavior. And one of them, or two, are related to low levels of education and what happens in the home. There was a situation, and maybe Jude could talk to that, where you had 3 generations of people, men, in the prison. 3 generations. The older, whatever, grandfather, the son, and the next one. The example is there for us, and there's not been enough prioritization in terms of the social sector for investing in parenting, because there's, I don't know why, but there may be an assumption that people have children and they are able to raise them. And we've seen and experiencing that now. So I want to make a very strong appeal for us to invest in our parents. They can be attending workshops or other community activities on a Saturday, weekends, whatever. But if we don't invest in our parents, we cannot expect to see anything among our young people. I want to also ask you if this presentation will be shared. If I can, those of us here can have access to it. But please, don't forget the parents as we concern ourselves about employability of our young people. Imported labor as a short term, I have no issue with that, but how can you ignore your own? And then we see what we see. And they don't want to work because we are not cultivating the attitudes in them. We blame our young people. We, as the older generation, need to take some responsibility for the fact that we have not cultivated it. We worked hard. I grew up in a farm family that picked up nutmeg, cocoa, banana. We found it was too down to earth, dirty to raise our children. We give them a better life, quote unquote. Right? So we don't teach them the hard work, the responsibility, etc., the jogging of the water. We give them pipelines. All of us have to take responsibility. We work hard to give them a better life for the most part. But we forgot that in doing that, we were not cultivating the basic values that made us successful. Thank you.
So we have 4 comments on that. Before either of you go, it is not often, miss, that I hear the older generation take responsibility like that. And so from a young person, thanks.
All right. Just 2 quick ones to piggyback on what Val just said. And I'm hearing some comments about when the tree gets old, it's hard to bend them.
Yeah.
So I think let's go back to the primary level. 4-H, like bringing in things at the primary level that would prepare them to have the culture and the mindset by the time they get to secondary and tertiary level, right? I mean, I grew up in the land with my mom. And I think Val is right. What we've done as parents, we don't want our children to do that kind of work anymore, so we've taken them away from it. And my regret was I stayed away from the land for so long that to get back to it now, again, things have changed, the dynamics have changed. So my sons who, they don't have the same level of appreciation for agriculture that we did, right?
Yeah.
And many of us here, I'm sure, the farm sent us to school, right? The farm was really the life. In fact, every one of us had some kind of backyard garden, right? When you want to do your meals. So I think to really recreate an agricultural mindset in Grenada as a whole, we have to go back to the younger generations and show the value of the land, which we always have, and really, create some energy around that. Children go to school and learn well. We need that, but we need to really focus on the land. Secondly, Val also mentioned investment. And I think one area that we need to do some serious investment is rehabilitation and the social services. She mentioned prison, for example. 60% of the guys in prison right now are repeat prisoners, 60%. Repeat, so the recidivism rate in the prison is 60%. We're talking about guys who are in their 20s and 30s who have been to prison 20-something times and 30-something times. And that is not the exception, it's the norm. And of that 60%, 58 of them have some kind of drug-related challenge. all around Grenada, we see the evidence all around us. So I'm suggesting that of the $18 million it's costing yearly just for the sustenance of prisoners, let's invest some of that money in rehabilitation. At the community level, let's take the problem, let's bring the solutions back to the community, right? So that in communities, people know there's a safe place, there's a, you know what I'm saying? Let's try to really, recreate something in Grenada where there's a grassroots, community-based movement that brings solutions closer to where people are. Because when we have to take them, for example, from Sotez to come to town for a class, it's not going to work sustainably, right? So more rehabilitation services and addressing some of the issues at the primary level so that we can create the kind of culture that we're trying for the betterment of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique.
Thank you very much, sir. Well said. Miss, you go after. So again, we're taking note. Thank you very much for these suggestions. Keep them coming.
To support Mrs. Cornwall, in Grenada, we have quite a number of trained parenting facilitators trained by NTA. I happen to be one of them. And as the gentleman was saying, we could use these people in our community. We have a lot of young parents who are unskilled. The organization that I was working for up to today, it's my last day, we have a parenting skills training program. That's Child Protection Authority. And if you have some money and you want to pump into that, we gladly accept it. Okay?
Thank you very much. So thank you very much for the suggestion. We have another comment from the audience.
Peace and a pleasant good afternoon again a second time. I'm talking about health this time, health. Okay, long ago, we call milk, and everything, okay? But now, chemical eating, because the cow is chemical, the beef, everything is chemical, okay? I'm going on 73 years of age, and all what I did, I have bush, until kakabeke, just name them, have all kind of a long time bush, okay? And people just come for it. And I just give, okay? What I does, every morning is bush I just use, okay? For my thing. And with my local food, every morning, every day I cook my local food, my fresh food, okay? Because it's in the food in the fridge, it's sickness, it's the diabetic, with the hypertension and everything, okay? So I pray to God, anybody want bush, I give them free. I give them, If I to say, boy, come healthy, and to say, body go healthy, okay? The PT bomb, the Albert, the bush when you making they also bathe when children get old. How are them things on them? But I know when my children come, they will cut down. So everybody that want bush, they're welcome. So, I just be so happy. My aunt is 97 years of age now, and the bush, I don't give her also to. So, for health, health. Because you're going in Kentucky, you're buying the food, sometimes you there for 2-3 years, they think they go, they buy the Kentucky. But I'll tell you, bush is the answer right now. Local bush is the answer right now, okay? So that is the prayer of my, I had a daughter gardening, and I was born, but if you have, the mini bug, I buy the same grass, I leave it, and when it rotten, I put it back in my yam stool, I throw it back in my fig stool, and just I did ashes, I take it and I throw it back in my fig, and I just eat healthy. I don't put no chemical in my garden. If I get 2 grain of fig, 1 grain of burger is local food, okay? So I pray to God my thing, and that is the prayer of me, okay? So bless you.
So thank you very much. I see a hand at the back, and then I'll take you. So I have sir, and then we'll come here.
Good afternoon, everybody. I noted in one of your key takeaways that you had climate events as one of your key risks.
Yeah.
What I want to contribute tonight is St. David has a very good network of roads, right? But sadly, a lot of them has been in a state of disrepair. One, and two, people don't know where they are. Some have been totally overgrown. And I think this is maybe the third time I come and repeating myself in a budget consultation saying the same thing, okay? I don't expect it to be done, but I don't want it to be forgotten, right? So, for instance, we have that Monrepo Road from Providence going down to Corinth. We have another from Providence to Coles Gap. Just to name two of them. They come very important when there is an accident or there is a flood, like last year when there was this flooding last year, just on other places were going down. Everywhere you turn, it was a block. And then the roads where you could have passed, they were not passable.
Right.
Yeah, so it's something that we can continue to look into. I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day, and Rome was built with a lot of blocks. So that's one. Two, we are talking about what can the tourists get when they're here. About 2 months ago, at work, we have a project in Grenada. So we had to walk through the mountains from 1910 down to Les Avocats plant. And it took us from about after 9 in the morning, and we reached down about 6:30 the afternoon. The reason being, when the pathway was trekked before, burial didn't happen as yet. So right now, the mountains, the pathways have been overgrown. Trees would have, they really network the ground. Right. They're growing up where there were pathways, so you really have to make a way. I know maybe the Ministry of Agriculture used to cut those tracks and have them as hiking trails. So maybe you could boost the place's ecotourism. Yeah, as one of the activities, people want to walk, they want to see what nature is. When I was a child, I remember when my cousins came from the States, it was the first time they saw the moon. Because the States is full of light. We're getting full of light now, but first time they saw the moon, a full moon. Right. Yeah? So, you never know where the people come from and what they want to experience. So basically it's that, but one thing I want to request, if we have a number, a WhatsApp number or an email address, which we can send some more input, because we have our community up here, we have a group. Right. And we have a list of projects that we would like to see happen, whenever they happen, but at least they want to be recorded. Okay. So if we have a number, a WhatsApp number.
So what we do have is a budget portal. So we understand that everyone may not be able to make it out to consultations like these. And so if you go to www.finance.gd, a pop-up is going to appear and it's going to ask you to give your suggestions for the budget. So even if when you perhaps go back to your team and you meet with them, then you guys can sit down and fill that in. Ladies and gentlemen, I must acknowledge the presence of our Honorable Prime Minister.
Okay. All right, too.
Thank you very much for joining us this evening, sir. Once again, I do not envy the position that you're in. So we have another suggestion from the audience. So once again, just to wrap up the comment I was making, finance.gd, and head over there and you'll get access to the budget portal and you can put in any suggestions that you have that may come to you even after we're finished with these consultations today. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Afternoon, everyone. I must appreciate Mr. Oliver's contribution about the hiking trail and stuff like that, because tourism is involved with that as well. It's not only come see sand and, sightseeing. It's not only that. So there's a lot of activities we could do, like to create or to bring in the tourists more, because there is you call recreational games. Like there is a game called cap fishing. I know we've got the Grenada Lake and the River Antwine Lake. There's a fish called cap, and it's widely and internationally been hunted and thrown back in the water. If you look at the cap magazines, the magazines portray many areas where the Europeans and the Swiss, they go and they fish, they wait, then they throw it back. They come back next year and they bring groups of them. So they'll fish, they'll hotel, they'll have a little nightlife, they'll have a little bits there, enjoy. I've got a European friend. He wouldn't come back to Grenada because he said when he comes to Grenada, he gets chips and burgers. He says he wants local food. He wants a local cuisine to eat, so he feels like, oh yeah, I've been to Grenada. I've been there, It's not only about the rum and stuff, but he wants to see and eat the cuisine that we have, all the, different meals that we cook. So things like that, we could help, enhance maybe public-private partnership where you assist the private person in whatever they, like create a lake, bring in the fish, advertise on the Cap magazine's fishing thing. So we bring tourists, they come with a rod. They come with everything, just as how you do the marlin fishing. They could come in and enjoy and go back, tell their friends, and we build in. And then we build up that, we build agriculture. We get the food going, so we have to cook for them and feed them, So contributions from government or ministries and private would be much appreciated.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you so very much for the contribution. So we have sir, and ma'am, in that order. So go ahead.
Good night.
Good night.
On a lighter note, I will like to say my name is Oliver Paul, and I am the owner of St.David Agro and Cottages. We are located at the end of Content Road. I have built a very beautiful tea shop overlooking the sea. It is really nice. And the Prime Minister and the government has surfaced the first half of that road. Thank you. Thank you, Prime Minister. And we're waiting, the tea shop is waiting for us to continue, for the government to continue that road to the end. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, so thank you very much for the contribution, ma'am. You'll go after.
Okay. Good night to everyone. I'm here on behalf of the people of Mount Agnes. We need our road to be widened, as Oliver said. Our road is a private. If something happened to the main road, this road take you back to here. And we also need 2 bridges in the area, need a bit fixing, because right now of the heavy traffic, it has cracked underneath. We also have a land slippage on the road to the water plants. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Again,
all right, sorry to be back again. Some very important points were touched tonight.
I would be happy, God spare our lives next year, that the presenter point out some of the suggestions that were taken on board and had an impact in the budget and would have created a better life for us as Grenadians. This morning I've been thinking deeply, just to segue, on that law that reduces the age for consent to go to the doctor. Yes. And I was telling someone that if we work hard on parenting, that basically this law might be redundant. Now, sex is something natural. People have natural tendencies. However, if we educate our people strong enough, I believe the urge to try it and to do it will be later, because people will see that basically, as nice as it is, it impacts on your economic growth. It impacts on your development of a good life. And so, a lot of people talk about parenting. And really and truly, we really need strong parents. Strong parents mean good children. But sometimes what happens is that, we focus only on ours. And we forget those around us. So the strong among us, you're a challenge to assist the weak. They may be abusive because, if you hold a dog when it's in trouble, it will bite you. They may be abusive, but you cannot give up. The seeds that we sow today is going to benefit us many years down the road. And so we have to take that challenge. Parenting, let's not talk it, but let's try our best to get it going in the best possible way. We speak a lot about government, and I like Mr. Paul. He did his part, and he expects the infrastructure. When the road is completed, Mr. Paul will not be the only person that will benefit from the road. Because there are other persons down the lands, and possible, with that completion of the road, you will have other developments. The young man spoke about the Badia Road. In my youth, Badia Road was a stone road. Badia was an estate. We have estates. We are all estate children, right? Badia was an estate, Corinth was an estate, Syracuse was an estate, La Pastora, Bartlett, right? All of these have roads that were important network. In fact, you can pass through Badia to get to Windsor Forest. As I speak about that, many years ago, the road started going through La Pastora. I was supposed to get to Windsor Forest. I do not know how far this reached. But when we develop our infrastructure, we develop business. When we develop business, we increase the GDP. When the GDP is increased, I can smile. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution, sir. And we trust that we'll be able to keep you smiling for a long time. Our next suggestion.
Good evening to everybody.
Good evening.
Okay, we spoke of different sectors like agriculture, tourism, and we are clamoring for the development. But what I didn't hear, which I'm going to suggest, is that we should get value added to whatever is being produced. Because I don't want to bring out a truckload of bananas and I have no way to put it, or nothing to do with it. I could remember as a child, during the revolution time, I saw value added to our agricultural products. We had the tamarind nectar, we had the preserved meats and those things, and I could clearly remember those things. So what I'm suggesting, as much as we're pushing to get development, we cannot stop at one point. What I'm encouraging is for us to find the ways and means, empower people allow them to empower themselves even further to bring out the best in what we have, because we have the best. And there is no doubt about it. And I will fight about it. Now, the next thing. We spoke a lot about agriculture. I'm passionate about agriculture. It's what bought my school books and my school uniform. I'm not ashamed of it. So, the approach that we take towards agriculture, we might be eating for the proper nutrients, cabbage, carrot, onions, whatever, but what we eat on them, it's toxic in some instances. How much of it? How much of our farmers are aware that some of the chemicals that they use, how much, what they spray and whatever, how much of it is actually causing the amount of cancers that we have? It's not just about the process, but the process of the process. And what ends up on our table. So for instance, canola oil used to be lighting lamps. Eventually it ended up in the engines of our machines. And today it's on our plate. And we call that food. I listened to the lady from Beaton, and I admire her. Because in her simple way, I applaud her for bringing out what she has to bring out. Some people may not understand what she wants to bring out, but I'm sure that I understand what she was trying to bring out in terms of what is right and what we should do. Sometimes we tend to listen to the people with ERs behind their name, the doctors, the lawyers, and the teachers. But we have to also understand that the people on the ground are the ones that are feeling the heat, the ones that wouldn't be able to come up with the cash to pay the doctor. But at the same time, education is not from a school, in all cases. I used to be a teacher too. But right in this class, in this school. But at the same time, the people who seem as though they don't know have a wealth of knowledge. And we tend to gravitate to what is handed to us. It's time that we start asking questions as a people. I'm begging us as Grenadians, stand up and start asking questions. Hold yourself accountable first. And the others who might be in charge, they have to be also accountable. The next thing, last what I have for now. Our social development of our people needs a walkover. Our children, this is their best friend. What does it do? This is a tool, not a part of your body, it's not even your friend. It's a tool to be used. I might end up in trouble for what I'm saying here. But our children, and including our adults, because this is the friend of our adults also. I'm not crying down a phone or a computer. It is necessary. They are tools of our daily operations. It's a must right now. But we need to be able to balance. We need to be able to encourage and say 20 minutes. Some people cannot live without it. I work at Flow, and when the Wi-Fi goes, sometimes I'm afraid to go outside when the internet goes off. Because I'm working there a long time, and people, they know me, including my other colleagues. Now, it's difficult sometimes when you go outside there and everybody see you and they say, Mr. Flo. But at the same time, our social development needs attention. And please, 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 I'm asking everybody, the whole of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, just take a time off. The phone is there, the computers are there, the information is there, and then at the same time, when you use it wisely. Use it to develop yourself. And what I'm actually trying to say here, I would like it to be encouraged from the top down. So we will be able to change our ways, and everything that we do, everything that we say would be something of purpose. So it's not just about the dollars and cents, but it is also about our social values and what we do and how we do it. Because I would never love to see what would happen if we continue along this trajectory that we're on. What is going to happen down the road? Money won't be able, not even a budget go fix it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so that's all for now.
Thank you very much, sir. Well said. I heard investment in the agriculture value chain and investment in social development, psychosocial and cultural development as well. Folks, we are nearing the end of today's engagement. We do have the Prime Minister, and I want to give him an opportunity to make a few remarks. If he's ready to do so, I'll invite him to the podium. I know you're eager to hear from him. He's been traveling a bit, so we'll let him rest his legs and he'll address us from the head table. Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out on a Friday. So for future purposes, we should probably have the consultations Monday to Thursday. Yes. I'm sure the staff would be happy as well. But no, for the citizens from St.David who've come over this evening to the budget consultation, I want to say thank you for coming. The consultation is really about giving our citizens the opportunity to have a direct say in what ends up in the budget and what funds are made available for addressing the needs of the citizens. I believe I heard someone say that next time they'd like the presenter to present on what aspects of the consultation ended up in the budget or were impacted. But you don't need the presenter to do so. We could use our own senses and recognize that there must be things based on what you say that ends up in the budget. We could start with this school. The last time there was a budget consultation in St. David, we didn't have one because of Hurricane Beryl last year, but we had one in 2023, and that was held in the temporary wooden buildings at the Bellevue Community Center. At that time, the St. David's school, this school, and the preschool was temporarily housed at the Bellevue Community Center. And it is because of the funding of the budget that would have allowed for this school to be repaired so that we could sit here tonight and have this budget consultation in this school, and that the students were able to be relocated back from the temporary wooden buildings at the community center and to be here. So the budgeting process is straightforward. Anything that takes place in the country that involves taxpayers' money or that involves a government project is funded via the budget. And so any desire that you express, any wish that you express, any program that we have is being run through the budget cycle in the simplest of forms, and that is why the budget process is important. While it may appear as numbers and a lot of Excel spreadsheets, ultimately it is meant to be able to implement the policies and programs of the government, which are essentially aimed at addressing the short-term, immediate, and long-term needs of the citizens. So from those who wish to see the road widening, I believe you see that we've been engaging in road widening. We've started largely in the context of St. David's from the Penwater, Windsor Forest, Vincent's area, and that is ongoing. It is stuff that has not been done in my lifetime and probably most of your lifetime. The roads, save for the main roads of St. David's, all of the secondary roads have remained the same all my life. And I'm sure I will win a bet that says it's been that way all your life. So we are addressing centuries and decades old challenges, so it will take a long process. It will be a continuous exercise for a number of years to come. It is not something that will begin and end in a 12-month cycle. And although the government funds it, it is private contractors, private citizens who have to do it, and we have to work with them, and there are significant challenges in the construction industry in Grenada, period. We have significant shortages of labor. It has been made worse by Hurricane Beryl. But even before that, we have some significant challenges. And some of that challenge has to do with our education system, which has not produced carpenters and masons and plumbers and electricians and refrigeration and AC technicians for a very long time. So this is a structural challenge in our education system that the Ministry of Education is beginning to address. It also has to do with the fact that we don't seem to like math in the Caribbean. And all of those things I've just talked about there require people to have mathematical skills. To be a nurse, you need to be able to have a good sense of math and measurement and conversions and those kinds of things. And if you're going to prescribe medicine and stuff for people and you can't measure and you can't convert things, you can't do so. You'll kill them. So, we have to, a lot of the outcomes has to do with what we're investing and the foundations that we lay or don't lay. So addressing the education system is one of the things you will see in the budget. We will continue to give priority to not just the physical infrastructure, but these fundamental changes we need to make sure the teachers who are teaching math themselves have passed and are qualified in mathematics, that they have the training necessary so that we can have math specialists teaching math, particularly at primary school. Because if the students don't love math at primary school, they're not going to love it at secondary and beyond that. And that is a critical challenge that not just Grenada, but the Caribbean faces. So infrastructure work is going to continue. I heard the comments about Mount Agnes, I heard the bridges and so on. We will try and address each one as we can. So all I'm saying is to bear with us. We will address those that might be more critical or may be in risk of collapsing when you have bridges and so on that may impact persons from being able to travel, whether by foot or on vehicle. But we certainly will continue taking a systematic approach to improving the road networks throughout St. David. We have a number of projects lined up for the Westall area. There are a lot of roads in there that have not been addressed for many years as well, so we're trying to address them. We'll continue the exercises in Windsor Forest, Penwater, and once we complete that, then we will move on. We can't start stuff all over the place and not complete them. We have to be able to start, complete, not just the drains, the culverts, and be able to then pave the roads, because part of the challenge is the water. If we don't have proper drains, if we don't have proper culverts, then the water is going to pool and the asphalt is going to wash away very quickly. So we had Mr. Oliver Paul talk about the work that is going on in his area. We are doing drains and so on in places like Malmont, which is the road leading to the Malmont beach. We will do the drains first, we will do the culverts, and then we will try and do the roads. We have the St. David's Catholic Secondary School, which work has started on in Malmont. This is a 24-month project, so that will again continue. So it will be reflected both in this budget cycle and in perhaps the next budget cycle and so on and so forth. The last, just natural works, we have been looking at designs to improve and renovate natural works. We want to preserve the historical aspect of it. The concept involves a museum, restaurant, open space area, concert area, play park for children, and critically a vendors area. We are probably going to work on the vendors area first, because I'm going to be very unapologetic about this. I'm not prepared to have St. David's be turned into a sidewalk on the side of the road, lawless, anybody does what they want, vending area. So either if you don't like me on this point, you could exercise your right when the time comes and vote me out. Or we can do what is right. So what is right for me is to try and ensure that I can provide market spaces and proper vending booths where people have electricity, water, and toilet facilities, because I don't know, people buy food from people who have no toilet facilities on the side of the road, no place to wash their hands, no running water. So at least under my watch, I'm not prepared to support it. But I'm happy also to try and help find spaces, because we recognize we don't have a market space in St. David for people to go in and be able to vend, which means hopefully we'll have more foot traffic and more customers so that we can support them. St. David is the fastest growing parish, certainly by population size, and as I think we all are aware, there is significant investment taking place in the hotel and tourism industry. So the issue of community tourism, which I heard the gentleman talk about, the issue of making sure that when tourists come, they get a Grenadian experience, that they eat Grenadian food, that they can get to see our trails or waterfalls or historic artifacts and so on. This is something that is critical. The Minister of Tourism is from St. David. He lives just down the road from here. And community tourism is one of the initiatives that I know the Ministry of Tourism has been funding. It is something that we see as critical for St. David's in light of the development of the Six Senses and the Intercontinental and other hospitality and real estate projects that we expect to come. So I want to encourage, I think it's important for us to appreciate the government could only do certain things, police, teachers, nurses, etc. But the government can't be a business. The government is not a business. So respectfully, we can't produce agro-processing. The government can't turn fish into saltfish. It requires the private sector to do so. It can't turn nutmeg pods and the pericap into jams and jellies. That is for the private sector. And so we are trying to empower our citizens. We give them concessions. We had the CES grant. The Minister of Agriculture and his team, P.S. Bagwan, is here. We bought a building in Lakalom. It's been retrofitted so that we can provide factory space to small agro-processors who wish to come and use the machines and so on to turn their various ideas into businesses and products and so on. But it is the citizens who have to do business. It is the citizens who have to be prepared to educate themselves, to take risk, to learn about financing, to learn about insurance, to study and do the research when it comes to how you cook, make, and convert things. And we need to encourage that spirit of entrepreneurship, that spirit of research and development in our people. The government is not a business and it can't do business. It doesn't have the capacity to do so. So it's important for us to appreciate that and to push our people to become more business people, more entrepreneurs, and we are happy to continue supporting, whether it's GDB, GIDC, etc. All of this is taking place. So I want to say on the Badia Road, which I heard again, I explained to the gentleman, we have a challenge with finding contractors, right? And there's two sides to contracting. The people who give you the money want to know that you can build the road or the bridge or the school. And they make that assessment on paper. You can't just go and say, well, I build a road here, so give me the contract to build this road here. They want you to cost how much it will take. They want you to prove that you have the staff. They want you to prove that you have the experience. And if on paper you don't qualify, especially if it's a loan or a grant from the Caribbean Development Bank or somebody else, then sometimes we put out and say to people, we have a road to bid, we want contractors to bid for the road. Sometimes nobody bids. Nobody's prepared to do the paperwork. Or if they do bid, they don't answer half of the questions. And when that happens, then they just, literally nobody qualifies to be considered. And if it's grant money, meaning money that we don't have to pay back, we must comply with the requirements of the people giving us the funding. So if the contractors can't even fill up the forms, then we can't even move. And so we've been working, and we are working to try and even push back against some of the persons who are giving us, to see if we could get them to address and make their requirements a little less stringent and more tailored to the needs of the Caribbean and to Grenada. But it is a challenge. And so sometimes we are delayed because we can't find contractors, or we end up with one contractor who qualifies, but he already has 2 and 3 jobs. And if you give him the job on top of that, then the work takes a long time to do, or it is significantly delayed. So I want us to learn about our societies and the challenges we face, right? So that when we ask questions, we can understand why it is sometimes, even though the money is there, even though I have every intent to try and get the road fixed, sometimes we can't move because the country lacks the capacity. And that capacity is our citizens don't have the capacity. So this is a big challenge that Grenada is facing at this time. The other Caribbean countries facing that. And the construction area is one glaring example of this. So I'm hoping that we can find contractors who will either qualify for the bids, or we can go back and ask the funding agencies to amend the conditions, and that we can get the Badia and Rukane areas addressed. The scope of work has been done, the estimated cost of the work is known, and we've actually gone through 2 rounds where we've asked contractors to bid. In the last round, I think only one contractor even qualified. So we almost had no choice. Right? And we have concerns over whether the contractor could actually deliver, because right now he has jobs that he's doing for the government that is significantly delayed. And one of those jobs is in St.David. So as I explained, you just have to bear with us sometimes because there's some things that are sometimes not within our control. But having said all of that, again, as I said, I want to thank you for coming out. We are committed to continuing to work hard. Programs like the WASH program is continuing. We've started just on the road there in St.David, and we've started in Mardi Gras, and we hope to be able to, assuming we don't have a lot of rain interruptions, to be able to progress these quickly so that by the end of the year we can complete in those villages, and then we will move to other villages in St. David in 2026. So the social programs, I prefer to call them trampoline rather than safety net programs. We want people to bounce up rather than constantly be staying down and asking for help. We want to give you, when you're falling, when you hit the trampoline, you go back up. So I will call them trampoline rather than safety net programs will continue so that we can continue empowering people and giving them the opportunity to be able to empower themselves. The education programs will continue, the infrastructure programs will continue, and we'll continue supporting those who want to become businessmen, businesswomen, or want an opportunity to get employment. There are a lot of jobs available. We want to encourage people to look for jobs. It's not just the government who hiring people. There are a lot of private sector persons who are also constantly asking us to help them supply employees. But it also means we have to be prepared to train and retrain as the case may be. So as I'm in Bellevue, we intend to do some work on Bellevue. Starting soon, we will be erecting the playpen. Shortly, we will try and see how we can assist with upgrading the field for football, the installation of lights, and the repair of the community center as well. So thank you very much for your time and attention.
And I must say thank you very much for joining us this evening, Honorable Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we come to the end of this evening's engagement. Once again, on behalf of the Ministry of Finance, thank you so much for coming out and for passionately sharing your ideas and suggestions. They have been noted and they will be shared with the relevant ministries. Thank you once again and have a good evening.